We are 1 week away from NFL free agency, and the Miami Dolphins got some big news on their top impending free agent, Jevon Holland. We are going to break that down on today's show. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. We've talked a lot about how Holland may not return to the Miami Dolphins, but it ultimately will be decided in the next week or so. And I think there are a couple key dates that Dolphins fans should know already, but I want to make sure you do. And if not, it's just a refresher that the franchise tag deadline. Now, it could be rumored that Miami tags Holland on a transition tag around $15 million and a full franchise tag being $17.5, $18 million. The Dolphins have to make that decision by 4 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, March 4th. But if they do not do that, he will officially be talking to teams in free agency on March 10th. And I think it's clear that Dolphins fans know this, but I'm going to reiterate it. The Dolphins will not tag Jevon Holland. Mike McDaniel made that clear at the NFL Combine. It's been kindly widely reported as well. It is obvious that there will not be a tag placed on Holland, and he will ultimately be a free agent on March 10th. But make sure you are following me over on X/Twitter because I will be posting up-to-date Dolphins news, Dolphins rumors surrounding NFL free agency on the Miami Dolphins, whether they sign someone, whether they lose a player, news, rumors, we'll have you covered. So follow me at Nic_Rohloff. That is my handle. All right, I did want to get to what the update was on Jevon Holland. This coming from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. He said that while Jevon Holland did not have a great year in 2024, some inside the league believe his body of work in his 4-year career should land him somewhere in the Xavier McKinney range, which if you go back a year, he earned 4 years, $68 million. That comes out to about $17 million per season for Jevon Holland, which is quite interesting because the numbers being reported that Holland could get in NFL free agency are quite a wide range right now. Like, seriously, PFF has him projected to make $19.5 million per season. But then you look at Spotrac, their projections, $15.1 million per season. And then you just see what Fowler said, hearing that he could get $17 million per season. So right now, it sounds like Holland on the open market could get anywhere between $15 and $19 million, which is fascinating because if it's closer to that $15 million, well, then you have to start to wonder, could Miami actually start to think to retain Holland in free agency? I know I've been very against that, but $15 million per season, if that's what it is, it's hard not to be interested in that. But if I'm looking at it through Miami's lens, now, personally, I would start to get intrigued once again from that $15 million per season range. But I ultimately do not think it matters if that is what he could be had based off what Chris Grier has done in the past, based off what Mike McDaniel said at the NFL Combine. And I think that's important. I want to remind people what he shared during his press conference at the NFL Combine.
Yeah, I think, Javon has earned the right to go out and test his market. And that's something that, I don't look as a negative because what I don't want is players being here and wishing they were somewhere else. So, testing the market. This has been a guy that has been a contributor from his rookie year on. That a lot of teams have had the ability to watch him, and we feel good about his ability to test his market, and if business works out appropriately, his ability to be back here. So that process will start. I know he's looking forward to it, and he's earned that.
You heard Mike McDaniel say it. He's earned the right to test his free agent market. That type of language, that type of verbiage signifies to me that they are not going to try to even re-sign him despite his contract numbers being lower than one might anticipate. But let me know your thoughts on the matter. If you were in charge of Miami, hearing that Holland could be making $15 to $17 million rather than $18 to $20 million per season, would you resign Jevon Holland? Type S for sign or type P for pass. I think Miami's still going to pass, and I personally am still passing on Jevon Holland at that price tag. He is a fine young player. He was a good selection by Chris Grier in the draft in the second round because his production over the 4-year career he had in Miami was very good. You get this type of production out of a second-round pick, you're going to be extremely happy. You're going to be through the roof on this. But the issue is not Holland as a player, even though I do have some issues with the way he has handled the media, the way he has handled the locker room, and his decline in production over the last 4 seasons, with his best years coming in his first 2 seasons as a Miami Dolphin. It's just the fact that Miami being up against the cap right now, having to address positions like offensive line, defensive line, backup quarterback, off-ball linebacker, and corner after they release Kendall Fuller. Like, the amount of starters that Miami has to replace this offseason via free agency in the draft, there's just so many. And it's a kind of thing that you should look at Chris Grier almost is like, how did you let it get to this point? But I don't know if you could expect Miami to really give someone like Holland, who is in not as valuable as a position as offensive line, defensive line, or corner, $15 to $18 million per season, just due to the fact that you need to shore up your trenches much more than anything else on your team. So that's the issue I have with bringing back Holland, right? Like, he's starting to get into that range where you'd consider it, but I just think the needed offensive line and defensive line is just so great to where I think Miami is going to use the cap space available to them to address those positions rather than giving Holland a $15+ million per season contract. And we're going to talk more on Holland, on what teams might be interested in Javon, plus how Miami actually does replace him. But we are sponsored by PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy sports platform out there. I play PrizePicks on a daily basis, and so do millions of others. All you do is pick more or less and at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. They have weekly promotions, including one on Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You can play daily. You can play season long across different sports leagues: basketball, hockey, baseball, football, golf. I've got an entry for basketball in tonight's action. More than Bam Adebayo, 32.5 points and rebounds. More than Andrew Wiggins, 1.5 3-pointers. And then less than on Alex Sarr, 1.5 3-pointers. A little Wizards Heat action on a Monday night. But join me and the millions of others on PrizePicks right now. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, now I want to get to some more on Jevon Holland, because in that same type of article that was shared by ESPN about the Holland price range, they also kind of shared what team might be the most aggressive pursuing Jevon Holland. And it's actually the Carolina Panthers, which I find is fascinating, because if you go back just 1 year in free agency, Carolina signed the best free agent available from Miami's side of things, Robert Hunt, to a record-setting 5-year, $100 million signing for the guard. So they were listed as that top kind of team for Jevon Holland. They're also in the market for Cam Bynum, according to Dan Graziano. But there are a lot of teams linked to Jevon Holland lining up. I see fans across different organizations wanting Jevon Holland with cap space. The New England Patriots aren't on the team listed here, but their fans are interested in potentially getting Jevon Holland. I've seen New York Jets fans talk about it with some cap space potentially freeing up. But you see teams like Jacksonville, New York, Carolina, Las Vegas, all needing safeties, all having cap space. But I would like you to keep your eye on the Minnesota Vikings. Do they sign Jevon Holland? I am not sure. But Cam Bynum, mentioned as a fit for the Panthers, is a free agent. If Bynum were to sign before Jevon Holland, and it is not with the Vikings, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator in Minnesota, who drafted Jevon Holland as head coach in 2021, also got the best year of Jevon Holland's career as a rookie out of him. I could see Minnesota being a really top destination for Holland if they lose Cam Bynum in free agency first. Make sure you are subscribed, because as we are 1 week away from free agency, we will have you covered on everything surrounding the Dolphins. Like I mentioned, rumors around Miami, news, who the Dolphins actually do re-sign or sign themselves, and then obviously players that were on the roster that go elsewhere. We'll keep you updated on that. But assuming now, after everything we've said today, that Jevon Holland is off of this Dolphins roster early in free agency, how do the Miami Dolphins go about replacing his production in the back end? Because you also have to replace Jordan Poyer in free agency in the draft as well. So you almost need to get 2 new starting safeties. I think the Miami Dolphins will go about it in this way. I think the Dolphins will sign a relatively cheap middle-tier free agent that is available, and then they will draft a safety in the first 3 rounds. They drafted a 6th-round safety last year in 2024 in the form of Patrick McMorris out of California. I expect him to be the 3rd safety for the Miami Dolphins this season. I actually have no problem with him being the 3rd safety on this Dolphins depth chart, but you need to get a full strong safety and a free safety. Well, when you look at free agency in the draft, I have 8 total options. On the left, I have my top 4 guys in NFL free agency, and on the right, I have my top 4 guys I could see the Dolphins targeting in the NFL draft. Now, it is important to note the 4 guys on the right with the draft, Starks, Barron, and Amenwari, are probably all first-round, really early second-round picks, as Xavier Watts is also likely going to be an early day 2 pick, likely in the middle of the 2nd round. But the guys on the left, Blackman, Sisco, Hufanga, and Reed, can all be had anywhere between $8 to $12 million potentially per season in NFL free agency. And before I give you what my ideal preferred kind of route we go here down the stretch, let me know, drop the name. Who is your top Jevon Holland replacement? How does Miami address the safety room in your opinion? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. This should not surprise anybody if you've watched our content over the last 2 or 3 weeks speaking about free agent targets across all different positions. But my perfect offseason at the safety position would be signing Julian Blackmon from the Indianapolis Colts. There is a lot of concerns about his ability to tackle at that position, which has been a frustration with Jevon Holland as well, but he is one of the best coverage safeties out there. Had a QB rating of 92 when being targeted, takes the ball away. He is your classic free roaming, free safety that can also defend in the nickel if he absolutely needs to. I think he could get him on a 3-year, $22 million contract, 3-year, $23 million. I think that's good value for Julian Blackmon. And then I would look to draft Malachi Starks or Jahdae Barron. Because in my perfect world, I think they sign Blackmon on that contract, and I think they also address the offensive line in free agency, where they sign 2 veterans to start at left guard and right guard this upcoming season. And then you draft either Starks or Barron in the middle of the 1st round or late 1st round in a trade back. Your safety room being Blackmon, one of the rookies, and then McMorris. That's a solid room. And then you can still draft an offensive lineman, defensive lineman in rounds 2 and 3 as you have 2 picks in those ranges. I really like that potential outcome for Miami if they go that route. That is my ideal outcome when it comes to the safety and other kind of positions here for the team. But like I mentioned off the top, make sure you follow me over on Twitter. At Nic_Rohloff is my handle. We have you covered on all Miami Dolphins news, all rumors, and when news drops, we have you covered over there before we make content here on YouTube. So if you want to get the news first, well, go give me a follow.